No matter who you are, no matter what you do, everyone has a story to tell. I'm recording artist Mark Tara. Welcome to Spotlight. Hello, and welcome to Spotlight, a show that features talented individuals with interesting stories to tell. So, let's see who's stepping into the spotlight today. On today's episode of Spotlight, musician Lorraine Segato.
Spotlight.
Mama Kia 2 was a 7-piece, all-woman, radical, they called themselves a radical lesbian feminist rock and roll band is what the title was. Mama Kia existed before I came into it, but they were changing their singers. They were looking for a singer, and quite by accident, I happened into it and I got the gig. And that was my first foray into a band concept. Mama Kia 2 was really quite popular in the early days because we would play all these benefits. I mean, Nicaragua, nuclear arms, anything to do with the Cold War, racism, you name the benefit, we were playing it. And that's how we made our kind of name. So it was a precursor for me, into the bands that I would follow into. I went from Mama Kia and into a group called V, which was a radical dub funk band that was quite political. So I was the lesbian singer, feminist singer, and my co-singer was a guy named Moja, who was a Rasta man. So, way back then, to have a Rasta and a feminist together in the same group playing, dub funk and reggae music was really unusual. So Mama Kia gave birth to that concept. Billy Bryan's amazing gentleman who's now left this mortal coil, my partner in Parachute Club. Billy, I brought into Mama Kia. He was the male drummer, because we'd lost our drummer, Linda Jane, and there were not many women drummers at the time. And Billy, considered himself to be a feminist. And so I thought, this was going to be a safe thing. First of all, he's an awesome drummer. He's a producer. He's got extensive background in blues, R&B, funk, you name it, he had it, world music. But I knew that he would be the guy to bring into Mama Kia. So he became the token male drummer. And later he produced the one and only EP that we had with Mama Kia. Our first record began in this way, which was that we had signed a demo deal with a young independent company called Current Records, and they took that demo that we did with Daniel Lanois and shopped it in Medem, and we got a major record deal out of that. So we had to go back into the studio. And we didn't have a whole album's worth of material, so we had to kind of write the rest of the material. We went back in, and as it turned out, Rise Up was one of those songs that was one of the last songs we ended up writing for the record. And Danny turned that song, via its arrangement. Like, the uniqueness of that song is that Danny not only did a beautiful job in the production of getting the whole band, representing the whole band playing together, but he arranged it and gave us a sound, gave us our Parachute Club sound on that first record. And so that song was released in 1983, and by the end of that year was top 5 across the country in all of the radio stations. And that was, like, who knew? Who even could imagine that that would happen from us, because we went from the margins, being this grassroots political activist band, right into the top 5 of the mainstream. We only did 3 records. over a period of, I'd say, 7 years. We toured a lot in between. We were in many ways a better live band than we were a recorded band. Because live, we would play very much like what you would have heard on the first record, which is very jammy and improvisational. We played very much like that. What happened, what happened in the 80s is that producers, when they get to you, they want to put their sound on you. And that's what was incrementally happening to us, is with every record we made, the more successful the record became, the more they wanted it to be a hit in the rest of the world. So they'd get these big producers who would then put a sound onto us. And often those sounds in those records didn't really match who we were as a band. So Hall & Oates were on a sabbatical. Daryl was doing his own solo record. John didn't want to do a solo record. He wanted to produce a band. And he'd heard we were label mates. So our record label up here started to put out the feelers into the United States. They wanted a US producer because they really wanted to break us in the States. And they'd really not it'd been difficult for them. Nobody knew what to do with us. A 7-piece band of that size and the kinds of things we were talking about. So they thought John would be the guy, and John was interested. He came up. I remember the first time I talked to him on the radio, we had an earthquake here in Toronto, and we figured that was a good sign. So he came up and met us and loved the band, and then we did this record together. Now the interesting thing about John is that in many ways, it was his mandate to try to create hits for us, for the record company in the United States, for here. And our mandate was completely different. Our mandate was to put out a decent record. So again, in that situation, working with John, awesome person, just great guy. But the songs that we ended up putting on the record and the sound of that is very much a byproduct of the mid-'80s. If you listen to the record, it sounds like the sonic aspects of the 80s. After the first record, we were writing material for the second record, and Laurie Conger, who's the keyboard player in Parachute Club, and Lynn Fernie, who is one of the writers for Rise Up, a dear friend of mine. The three of us went down to, we went to Cancun and Merida and Isla Mujeres, that whole area. And I had a particular fascination with Mayan culture at that point. I found the mystical aspect of the Mayan culture really fascinating. So one day we were in Merida, and they'd gone out looking for hammocks or something, and I fell asleep, and I was in this old colonial Spanish hotel that was kind of haunted and run down, and I'd had this crazy dream. And it was almost like I went back in time or something. And it was a feverish, hot, sweaty dream. When I woke up, I had the lyrics, "I saw your shadow, you were dancing at the feet of the moon." And it was very much about the Mayan culture. And it's about, secrets and mysteries and histories being caught in different times. It's about desire. It's about chasing things that you don't understand, and brought the lyrics back, and then we finished the song. I've had a lifelong feeling of ambivalence about the music business and about promoting myself as an artist, because I see myself as an activist who does many creative things. Music is one piece of it, and connection to issue and activism is the other piece of it. I also have training in film. I've made films in the recent years. So, for me, it's one big thing under the umbrella of artists. And what happens is I'm not a prolific writer, or I do write a lot, I write all the time, but I don't have the burning desire to be putting out a record unless I feel like I have a body of work that I really want to say. And so one piece of it is my ambivalence, Another piece of it is that when all the songs make sense and I feel like, oh, there's a theme here, and if you look deep, you'll see a lot of different things going on within this theme. And now I can put it out. And another piece is timing. Often I'm in the middle of another project, and my projects tend to take 2 to 3 years, like the film I just finished about homeless musicians with Shelley Saywell, the director. That took us 3 years to put together. So that's the other piece, is that often I'm working on other things in between. I've had a lot of response around that song. I've had a lot of people tell me similar experiences like that. That song was written for my partner, Billy Bryant, who passed away, now it's 3 years ago now. And in the process of Billy's returning illness, we spent the last 3 months of being in the hospice with him every day. And I was with him when his last breath, happened, as were a couple of other friends. Dave Gray, who wrote the song with me, he's my partner in Parachute Club. So that was it was an homage to Billy, but I think in many ways I was talking about and thinking about over the years how many friends we've lost, friends we've lost to AIDS, friends we've lost to violence, friends we've lost to disease. And it wasn't my intention to write a song that would be about everything, but I think in so many ways, times like these are really interesting times in the world. There's a lot of chaos going on, there's a lot of death going on, there's a lot of change and rebirth going on. And in many ways, this song is about that. It's about, in these moments, there's nothing you can do but sort of be present to loving that person. Get Off My Dress is actually, it's the name of my production company, but it's the name of my one-woman show. I call it a one-woman show with a lot of voices and a lot of music. It charts the course of a young immigrant girl who has this dream of becoming a musician, who leaves town, goes and does that, and then leaves her career at the peak of her career. And it answers the question that I sort of talked to you about before, about my ambivalence about the business and sort of being out there publicly in the world. It's a very philosophical play. It's got comedy in it. It's got tragedy in it. It's got ups and downs. And it answers the question, what happens when you leave the path that most people see that you're going to be on? What happens when you veer off that path to discover all these other things as a result? So it's, it's autobiographical, but I think in many ways there are teaching pieces in it. Like, I think what I'm trying to do is maybe hopefully what I did with times like this, which is write something that someone could go, yeah, that happened to me too, and I didn't know, that kind of a thing. I was asked by Mitchell Cohen of the Daniels Corporation if I was interested in becoming the inaugural artist in residence here in Regent Park. Regent Park is, as you know, undergoing a revitalization, and there is a community who's been here for a very, very long time, and then because there's new buildings going up, there was a new community that is coming in. And what I think they wanted to do was to have to show that without art and without culture, it's hard to grow community. So the key pieces are, as the resident artist here, what I'm trying to do is to showcase the talent of all of the people who are here, or as many of the people, or bring light to light the energy of the talent here, and to create events that will hopefully bring people into this area. So I'm a template, is the way I look for it. I'm just, this is the first year and a bit that they're doing this, and then I think they're going to look and find different ways of representing what would an artist in residence look like if they were implanted in a into a community. I've had the opportunity to listen to Stephen Lewis speak many, many times in recent years because my partner is his daughter, and she runs the Stephen Lewis Foundation, so I'm, I listen to him speak, and he's so eloquent. One day he was talking about the invincible decency of the African grandmothers who have suffered, and their children have suffered the ravages of AIDS, and the courage and the elegance and dignity with which they go about trying to pull their lives back together. And that really stayed with me, because I thought, imagine what it would be like to have a life that was invincibly decent. So, partially an homage to him and the work that the foundation does, and partially As a way of holding up a mantra for myself, I wanted to create songs, the themes of the songs, to fall under this umbrella of looking for some kind of decency in my life.
Spotlight. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, if you like what we're doing, subscribe to our channel. Remember, we live in days of making dreams come true. So until the next time, we turn the spotlight on you.